Hi, come on in.
And join in. It's the Very Merry Life. Hi, I'm Mary Hendricks, and you might know me as that relatable AF Mama over on Instagram who hopefully feels like an old friend at this point. And if not, it won't be long till it feels that way as we get raw, unfiltered, and very unapologetic in all things motherhood, marriage, sex, and more. From moments worth savoring to moments worth surviving, get ready to leave feeling seen and supported. You have a friend here now, so hey, take a seat. What's going on? Hi, Kristan.
Hi.
Hi. I'm so excited. Okay. So for everyone listening right now, this is the first time I'm really doing this, where this is a little bit of a collaborative podcast where the same podcast you can listen to depending on where you're listening right now. It's either our We Bad Parents podcast or it's on the Very Merry podcast. And Kristan and I are just kind of chat, and we've been connected. And I think this is really cool. But I think let's introduce ourselves first, depending on where you're listening to. You might not know either of us. You might know one of us. And we'll hopefully at the end of this, you'll feel like you know both of us equally.
For sure. Yeah.
All right, Kristan, you hit it off.
All right. Well, I'm Kristan. I am a co-host on the Are We Bad Parents podcast. So normally it's myself and my husband, Tim, and we take listener questions and we broadly answer the question, are we bad parents? But our overarching philosophy is that if you're asking the question, you're probably not. So it's meant to be sort of reassurance and a little bit of humor. We both actually, as of yesterday, we are both PhD dropouts. We both pursued PhDs in the realm of education and then had a child, and that put a lot of that on hold. So we both have a little bit of experience in thinking really deeply about education and about parenting, but we didn't want to do like the formal stuff anymore. And so now we just try to talk about it in a really, easy, approachable manner. We both work full time. I'm actually a copywriter, so I don't do anything within education anymore, but that's sort of us. We have an 18-month-old and a dog and a couple of cats, and that's me in a nutshell, basically.
I love it. I love it. And me, if you guys don't know who I am talking, I'm Mary. I am the woman behind the Very Merry Life. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, but essentially my page was a page that got started, and I think a lot of pages got started in the pandemic, but mine did. And I'm a mom of 3. I have 3 little ones or 5 and under at this point. And I try and connect moms through moments of surviving versus moments of savoring and trying to appreciate it all, because I'm not a page where I'm blasting motherhood, but I'm also not a page that is romanticizing it either. I'm just kind of done with the bullshit of it, and I'm just going to really say it as it is, because I'm done. I'm done. And I think we deserve to know how it can be, but also how awesome it can be at the same exact time. And I know you probably know that 18 months is like when it slowly starts to turn.
It is such a fun age. And to your point, like I remember I had a friend who said, people say that it never gets easier, but truly, and I agree with her. And I know that not everyone's going to feel this way, but for me, the first 12 months were like some kind of hell. And then things started to just, shift. And she's a lot of fun now. She's also got some really, really big opinions about, what color cup we give her. And and so it's a roller coaster every day. You might hear her in the background at some point.
That's all right.
Hopefully not.
That's all right. And for everyone listening, I'm currently recording in my childhood bedroom. So it's like a little surreal to be here. It's like I'm at my parents' house, and this is what I do because I don't have childcare. So it's just, it's interesting when I have my kids, preoccupied, then this is what I do to take advantage. But when you saying like the first year of life, see, it's funny for me because I actually love the newborn stage. I love that infant stage until this past time.
Really?
Yes. And I only because having multiple kids, and if you plan on having more kids, you realize the sacrifice you are making every single time you bring a new baby in. And it's not in a bad way. It just gets more and more prominent the more other like older children you have, where my mom and I were just talking about it. I don't know if we're done having kids. I don't know. It depends on the day. We'll see. I haven't made any final decisions yet, but I think the big deterrent for me is just knowing that like this past summer with my kids being older and having an infant at home that was only 5 or 6 months old, that was really hard because my
Yeah.
kids wanted to go outside and play and they wanted to go to the pool and they wanted to go do all these things, but it was way too hot for me to bring a little
Hmm.
baby outside. So I had to miss out on a bunch of stuff. Or even like,
Yeah.
on Saturdays, my daughter has dance class, but usually I'm home because my daughter has nap time and she doesn't want anyone else to put her to bed except for
Hmm.
me. So it's just like
Yeah.
there's all these things that you start to realize a little bit more.
I could totally see that because I mean, we do want more, but I think I actually told Tim not too long ago, I was like, it feels asinine sometimes because we're just now starting to get sleep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was like she hit 18 months and she suddenly was kind of like, I'm going to sleep now. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, this is great. I am such a better person in
Yeah.
general. Like, I didn't realize how grumpy I was and how sleep deprived I was. And now, we're able to actually, it feels like we're getting some of us back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a really good feeling. And it's funny you bring up it being too hot to bring a baby anywhere. I think like 2 weeks after my daughter was born, I was really determined to try to like be the same. Like I was like, I'm just going to be the same Kristan. Nothing's going to change. And we
Yeah.
tried to have some friends over for a cookout. And the friends we had over, thank God, had kids and they knew that I was insane for trying to host a cookout two
Yeah.
weeks postpartum. And so they helped out tremendously. And it was just like an epic fail on my part. And I remember them getting there and it hit me in that moment that because it was June, it might have just hit July. And I was like, wait a second, I can't bring her outside. I
Yeah.
can't, I agreed to do all this. And I literally, I mean, it was just such a total, I had no experience. I had no idea what I was doing. And I don't know. I remember it really hitting me in that moment that I was going to miss out on a lot of the summer stuff that I was used to.
Yeah.
And that, no, it's not reasonable to try to host a cookout right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big learning experience, and it's definitely top of mind for the next
Yeah,
one.
and you definitely have like a little bit of like a pity party for yourself. And you're
Oh
you're
yeah.
allowed to. You need to have a pity party for yourself. I did that this past summer. And that was because I brought my husband travels a little bit for work. So this past summer he went away and he was gone for a good chunk of time. And so I decided my parents have a beach house up in Massachusetts. And so
Mhm.
I said, I'm in New Jersey. It's a 5 hour drive. I was like, I'm going to pile everyone into the car and we're going to go. And
Yeah.
everyone thought we were nuts. And actually, the drive was easy. The drive was
Mhm.
like easy. We got there. It was being there because I had my two other girlfriends there who don't have kids. They're
Oh.
about 4 years younger than me. And so they would go out at night and they go out to dinner and I couldn't. And for some reason, I don't know why that hit me in such a way because I knew that. I
Yeah.
knew that. I don't think I realized it until then. And I was like, I was miserable. Like this entire
Yeah.
trip, I was miserable. And I told, like, to this point, to this day, I tell Kevin, I'm like, I don't think I've ever felt this bad being in that position. But I think that's like that's why I'm always honest with this shit. It's like that's something you don't expect with this whole parenting thing and
Yeah.
in getting into like, are we bad parents and things like that is you have a moment like that and then we feel bad because we're like, well, we should be moms. We should be loving
Yes.
all of this. Like, does this mean that I'm not good or does this mean that I don't love my child enough? Like, no, no.
Yeah, it's just normal. For me, it was the holidays. That was the biggest wake up call. That was my biggest pity party was the first set of like Thanksgiving, Christmas, winter holiday that we had with her. So she was about 6 months old. We did the crazy thing and we drove 5 hours to see my family and then
Mhm.
drove an additional 3 hours to see his family, Tim's family. And I remember it was like, the first holiday season where, I was nursing still I was like trying to enjoy myself and drink a glass of wine, but I just couldn't, she only wanted me. I couldn't get settled long enough to even really feel like I was enjoying myself. And when we go see Tim's family, his family's in Memphis. And so we have a lot of things that we like to go out and do when we're in Memphis. And all of that shit went out the window. And it was just like, oh my God, like I'm not doing any of the things that make me feel like me around
Mhm.
the holiday season. And I remember and I felt really guilty about it because everyone talks about how magical it is to have kids around the holidays and how, it's just this wonderful thing, and it's the best holiday, the best Christmas gift. And I was like, I am not feeling that at all right now. What is wrong with me? And then it led to me sort of not dreading, but I was really apprehensive about this holiday season, this past one, when she was 18 months old. And I actually did have a lot more fun with her then because she wasn't an infant, but it was still an adjustment. It was still different, and I'm like, I'm assuming that we'll figure it out one day. But I tried to give myself a lot more slack because it was like, okay, she still had a really good time. And it's okay that like, there's a part of me that still wants to do the things that I did before. And, it's a rapid adjustment. Like you have to just get in there and be the mom. And it's, totally okay to throw yourself a pity party.
Oh, completely. Well, and that's the thing is I think it's one of my favorite terms that I've ever come across. It's matrescence. Have you heard of?
Yes.
That is one of my favorite terms I've ever come across, and I'm so glad I discovered it. And I've talked about this before. If anyone's listening from my podcast, is just this term, and I'm going to sum it up because I don't have it like the official definition in front of me, but it's essentially the spiritual, physical, mental growth that happens, the developmental stage that you can view. It's like the same as puberty. So if you think about how awful puberty can be and how rough that can be, it's because you've never been through it before. And that's the same exact thing that motherhood essentially does, or parenthood does. Because I'm curious to see how men feel. That I'm like, you'd have to ask Tim and see your husband how he feels, but I don't know if men feel that shift as much as mothers do, because I do think there's a biological thing and there's something, but it's huge. And you are human. You have a new role, and you kind of miss the the part of you that didn't have this role before. And it's just, it's a lot.
I've asked him before. We have a podcast episode that we've never published. It was one of the first ones we tried to record, and the audio is terrible. So it's not out in the world, but we actually talked about, did he feel an identity shift or have an identity crisis, which is kind of what matrescence feels like.
Yep.
And did he lose any sense of connection with me? And it was really interesting because for me, like matrescence, it just hit hard. Like it was like, this is, and I think part of it was that I really thought that I would be, oh, my daughter's trying to say hi to me. Hi,
that's
baby.
Okay.
I really thought that I was just going to be the same person. Like, I don't know what, I even think my mom tried to tell me like, hey, you're going to have to let that go. But I was like rock climbing and doing all these things, and I had all these hobbies, and I was like, I'm going to keep them all. And literally just like one by one, they kind of slowly went away. Not to mention like, my postpartum body was not about to go up any sort of mountain. Like that was not going to happen. So, we talked about it. And I remember Tim mentioning like, he could still do the physical activities that he enjoyed. He could still, go out, and he plays ultimate Frisbee. So he could go out and like play ultimate Frisbee if he wanted. And meanwhile, my body was having to heal. And I was having to, like you said, adjust to this new role. And, you're talking about, are we bad parents or not? It's interesting that it's like we torture ourselves with that question. At least I do. I'll be like, oh, am I a good mom? Am I a good mom? And it would be so cool if we could just let ourselves figure out how to be a mom, period. Like we're so worried about excelling in motherhood. And it's like, are you good at anything the first time you do it? Like, no, all you can do is your best. This is a huge life shift, and I think we have a really hard time giving ourselves that slack sometimes.
Oh, 100%. And I always say this to people too. And I had asked on my stories on Instagram the other day, and I said, what do you classify a good mom to be? And what do you classify a bad parent to be? And it was a very hard question for a lot of people to answer, because it's all subjective. Most of it's all subjective. It's based off of personal opinion. So even at the end of the day, and that's what I always say, is like, what is perfection? Because I can't define it. Like, I don't even know what that is. And what I might attribute as being like, that's it, I'm a great mom. To someone else, I might be complete shit.
Like,
it's just, I don't understand. It's a very hard marker to meet.
Yes. And I was going to say, I'm so sad that I missed that on your stories. I've been like off social media for a little bit here recently. And I would have been so interested to see those responses, because you can't define it. And I mean, we, like, for example, we let our daughter be see, I'm even finding myself being careful now because I'm like, well, I don't want anybody to misinterpret this. Like, we don't neglect her. One of the most recent episodes we recorded, I'll go that route, was about whether or not we were bad parents for not helping her in all kinds of circumstances. So for example, the story that Tim told, she was trying to climb up onto the couch and she was struggling. And I was pretty quick to go and try to help her. And he was like, hey, no, don't. Like, let's just see if she figures this out.
Yeah.
And she did. And because she's a pretty independent, for an 18-month-old, like, she's pretty stubborn. She's pretty headstrong. She's really active. She was an early walker. Like, she wants to be doing things and she wants to do them by herself, to the point where she's gotten to the point where she'll go, no, mama, no, look if I try to help her. And so sometimes we'll be out in public and like our kid is just like climbing up a fence or, you know, like trying to like, that's the only example I can think of right now because it just happened. But she's doing something that maybe an 18-month-old, maybe, and the viewpoint of some, shouldn't be doing. But for me personally, like, as long as she's not disturbing anybody or like screaming in somebody's ear or something, I'm pretty good with letting her like climb around and explore. And from my point of view, I'm like, yeah, I feel like a great parent because it takes a lot to try to make sure that I'm not hovering. Like, my instinct is to hover. And I feel like I'm fostering this sense of independence for her. And I'm fostering this sense of, yes, like, you can do it. But from the perspective of somebody else, like, they might be looking at me and saying, oh my God, like, she's just letting her kid run wild. And like, she's, you know, what kind of mom is that? And yeah, it's just, it's really unfair.
Because, it's completely unfair because we have built ourselves into this little box. And what drives me nuts is that this is the reason why everyone's saying like the village isn't coming. The village isn't coming. Well, no shit. It's not coming because we're not ever going to allow it because at this point we are tippy-toeing past every single person and we are just building ourselves into a corner right now because that's what we're comfortable with. And we've also gotten away from the idea. And I think what I had said was, I should pull up my stories actually, because I can go in my archives, but I had said, what we think is that if someone has a difference of opinion is that that's bad. And so if someone's doing something different than you, it doesn't mean that they're any better and it doesn't mean that they're any worse. I think we can all agree that a bad parent, essentially, like to me, if I think a bad parent, is someone that knows that they are hurting their child, like someone that full on is consciously making the decision to hurt their child. Like, that is a bad parent to me.
Yeah.
A good parent, and I think I can look at the responses like we're, you know, someone that I will look up these responses actually because I know a lot of them were like very specific. And I said that to people. I was like, you know what? It's a difference of opinion, and different doesn't mean that you're better. It doesn't mean you're worse. It just means you're different. But we're still allowed to support one another. And even this morning, I woke up to, or last night, I got a message from someone and, I'll read it out loud, but it said, I don't always agree with your parenting style, but I don't know. They saw a video of like on my Instagram. We did a dance party last night and they said, I don't know why, but this video of you guys dancing made me cry. She said, reminds me of my childhood. Then I had some real perspective. Who cares what parenting style people have as long as their kids are happy? And that is all that matters.
Yes.
She said, believe me when I say your kids will always remember this. They won't remember if you baby led, weaned, or sleep trained. That stuff doesn't really matter. And I think that the world would be a little bit better if we all saw the big picture instead of the tiny details.
We'll be back after a quick break. Eye-Opening Moments podcast are real-life stories of adversity, encounters, and perspectives. They are moments that can lift your spirits, give you some food for thought, or move you. For the introspective mind that likes to reflect, discover, and find solutions or meaning in a complex life, listen to Eye-Opening Moments podcasts.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had replied back to her. I was like, this literally just makes me so happy. Because I say that all the time. Like, if you zoom in on any beautiful masterpiece, it's going to look like a piece of garbage. I don't care who you are. No one has got this all figured out. Not every brushstroke is going to be beautiful. We're going to just kind of have to go along with it as its own. But 9 out of 10 times there's love behind
Yes.
every decision that is being made. And that is something that I'm a big believer of. And your decision might be different than mine, but they're not my kids. And the love that you have for your kids isn't the same. My love and your love are pretty much equal because love is love, but it's different because we're two different people, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's going to come out in different ways. And it's like, yeah, I love that message so much, because I mean, like, to her point, it's like all kids are different. It makes sense that we're not parenting in similar ways. And whenever, you talk about, like, when I'm thinking about what's a good parent, what's a bad parent, I always come back to intention, which you use, like what you were talking about with regards to, like, what's a bad parent. What are you intentionally trying to hurt your kid? And by, contrast with a good parent, are you intentionally trying to raise your child in a way that does bring about good outcomes, like that does make them happy, that makes them feel fulfilled and safe and secure. And what that looks like is going to be different across families. And I think even per kid, you'd be able to speak to that better than I could because you have multiple. But something that I remind Tim of a lot, I'm like, something that scares me about having another kid is that I feel like I am getting a grip finally on what to do with this one, with the one that we currently have. And the second one could be totally different. And then, all these decisions that we made that either worked or didn't work for our first daughter, it could be like the total opposite for the second one.
Oh, and that might very well happen. I know that was the case with me and my son. So I have my daughter, I have my son, and then I have a daughter. And when we got pregnant with my son, easy peasy, that was pregnancy. But when he came, I had a long time taking to bond with him. Like
Really?
And because he was very different. He was very different. He was much needier. My daughter she was a very easy baby. I think that's probably why I enjoyed the infant stage a little bit, because my kids, for the most part, except for my son, and that sounds terrible, were very easy babies. Even my third baby, my first and my third are very easy babies. So I enjoy them. It's just my son, my second, was very needy, wanted to eat on me almost every 45 minutes, even up until like 5 months old, where like, I don't know, 4.5 months, where the doctor finally said, you know what, you can start introducing solids at like 4.5 months. And I was like, thank God, because I need something to fill in the gap. And I don't think it was because he was hungry. It was because he was nervous.
Yeah.
That's his personality. He's a little bit more like anxious and nervous, and that's just how he is. But even now that he's a toddler, the parenting style that he needs in order to reinforce things, I'm still figuring it out. Like my daughter was always a little bit better about like kind of reasoning, and even just like giving her a look, or like give her like the dagger eyes. She would stop and kind of realize that that's not what you should do. My son he doesn't give a fuck. I'm sorry, I don't know if you curse on your podcast. He doesn't.
No, we do 100%.
Okay. Yeah. So it is very, very different, but I think that's a great point. It's an intention-based approach with all of this stuff. And I actually just pulled up, let me see what people had said. So bad parent, I'll just give a few: ignoring safety and health, not telling that their kids that they love them. Literal child abuse and neglect. That was a very good one. Someone said, you're a bad parent if you really don't give a shit about being a good parent.
All right. Yeah.
Like, again, and this is where it gets like specific, someone that's using drugs.
Yeah. And like, I feel like that could be its own podcast.
Well, it totally can. And I, like, for me, and shooting this back, is like, that to me isn't a marker.
No, not for me either.
No, because you can have someone using drugs, or I have a mimosa here, everyone. I'm drinking alcohol. Like, I think of it as like, those people have love, but they might have something more. Like, and not saying that I have something more, but I have a mimosa. But like, if someone is, a user or abuser or something like that, like of drugs or alcohol or anything like that, a lot of times I do think that that's out of their control. It's the choices that, again, it's intent. I think a lot of them they know what choices they're making. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that's like super nuanced, I think. Not to mention too, I mean, like, you can be making a certain set of choices at one point in your parenthood journey and stop making those sets of choices later. And I don't know. I think we're all going to make the wrong decision. We're all going to make bad choices at some point while we're parents. So you can't use something super specific as a marker, because it's like, well, does that mean that I was a bad parent on like July 17th, 2021, like, it's just kind of like, what?
Well, and that's what it actually boils down to. That's what I don't like. And that's why, like, I know we got connected over a video I did on TikTok about chicken nuggets. But and I did a video recently about like the things that I've been shamed about for being a bad parent. And it was like little things where it's like, it's such a blanket statement where people are like, you're genuinely, I know I had said one, I was like, I don't like playing with my kids.
Yeah.
And someone took that. Well, and I remember this happened 2 years ago when I did a video and it was like viral. It went viral over it. And someone had said like, you're genuinely a bad parent for not wanting to play with your kids. And I was like, no, that's not the case. And I made an argument on TikTok and I said, I don't like playing with plastic fruit. Like, I do not like playing imaginary play that doesn't do it for me the same way that reading a newspaper wouldn't do it for my kids. There's a reason why adults have interests and kids have interests. Like, kids have these things that they're into and adults don't. You grow out of it. I'm not thrilled with that. It doesn't mean that I'm going to my kids and being like, that's stupid, right? Like, I would never do that. For me, I'm done with the pressure of wanting to play with them all the time. Like, I'm done with the pressure of like, if my kid comes up to me and like for me, I have work stuff. If they come up and be like, Mommy, you want to play? Like, if I can make it work, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm there. But if I can't, I'm not going to guilt myself over it because I have loads of other responsibilities to do when I know that they're going to be perfectly okay without me.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, not to mention, I think it's a good thing for them to see you fulfilling those responsibilities.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I want my daughter to see me working or cleaning or, like whatever it is that I need to be doing, just so she doesn't think that it's like a magic fairy that does all this stuff, or that I want her to know that she can play without me and totally crush it and be great, and it's really, social media is vicious about being a good or a bad parent. Going back to the nugget video where I think you were just like making chicken nuggets for your kids. And I remember being so appalled by the comments.
Wasn't it insane? It was insane. God.
And I was just like, where are you people coming from? Like, you cannot honestly tell me. I mean, again, my toddler, she's 18 months old, and we do a mix of both. Like, sometimes she eats what we have, but most of the time she's like eating her own nugget, or like I make like pounds of noodles, I feel like, every week because like she will eat noodles before she'll eat anything else. And I'm like, listen, it's not worth my sanity. It's not worth like, I want her to eat,
what fun is that of me? Like, so what, I'm going to make my meal and I'm going to waste my food and then I'm going to get pissed that they're not. So what is that doing for anyone? And I responded to that because, well, first of all, and this isn't like a man woman thing, but a lot of it was all men comment. It was all men, where I'm like, are you guys making the food? Are you making the food?
All of them. Yes. Yeah.
I was like, I highly doubt that. Like, and not that that's a thing. Like, maybe some of them are, I don't know. But I was like, 9 out of 10, it's very nuanced to have a stay-at-home dad. It's very new, and that still isn't there majority of the time. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Like, I'm with my kids. I'm doing the majority of the heavy lifting at this point, and that's what I can't stand. Where I'm like, you know what? Are you guys doing that? I don't understand. But I also had said, I was like, I'm big into like food moderation. Like, I'm not someone that shies away from getting my kids a Happy Meal. I'm not someone that shies away from candy, sugar, things like that. I try and do it all in good balance. And for me, I kind of grew up that way in that circumstance where my parents were always known as like the snack house, where you knew what friends didn't have access to that because they would come over and go absolutely apeshit in my pantry. And me, I actually couldn't have given a shit because it was just there, and it wasn't a big deal. Like, that's kind of how I am as a parent. Like, my parenting style is laid back, but I have my particulars with like safety and stuff like that. But I'm mostly laid back because I'm trying not to like I'm a firm believer that anything you make a big deal is going to be a big deal.
Oh yeah.
So I try and just like kind of not make anything a big deal. I keep it very neutral with most things. And that's how I am with food. And so if my kids want to try something, I'm going to keep that there, but I'm also going to give them food that I know they can trust. And that's going to be
Mhm.
chicken nuggets and mac and cheese or nuggets. And then I
Mhm.
kind of slip something else in and be like, hey, take a few bites and see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
Eventually it's going to come around. Like I'm not going to put a pressure with every nasty comment that I got with the chicken nuggets, I got like a crap ton more of like finally went like I think it was after 2 days because it was just like hard beat down with that where
Yeah.
then women started coming in and it wasn't all women but it was like women and men but it was mostly women saying like you know go mama like and then food aversion kids with on the spectrum that have dealt with
Mhm.
like stuff like that where they were like this is a very good approach like this is what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, yeah, to your point, like, I'm pretty sure, according to like the experts, right? When you hear, at least when I hear on TikTok from, you know, pediatric dietitians or people who work with kids and food, the less pressure you put on them, the better. Like that's kind of the thing that I've always heard, and that it's good to give them safe foods, whether that be the nuggets or whatever else. Like our child, I think, lived off of cheese for like a week straight at one point. Like it was all she wanted, and I was just like, sure, girl, whatever. And I don't even know that I would describe myself as like a super laid back parent. I kind of wish I was more laid back in general, just across my whole life.
Yeah.
But parenting has at least made me more laid back because it's like, I don't want to do the power struggle over something that is ultimately not going to impact her character. It's not going to impact her happiness or her safety. You know, like I'm going to get her in the car seat correctly. I'm going to make sure she's not, you know, nose diving off of a cliff, you know, like I'm going to make sure that she's safe. But at the end of the day, like those chicken nuggets are not going to matter, you know,
No, well,
like
but it could. And that's what, and some people in the comments on that, like, especially the nasty ones were like, first it got political. And I'm like,
oh,
okay, like,
okay.
let's back off of that for a second. Cause I don't touch any of that shit with a 10-foot stick or 10-foot pole, whatever. And I was like, I don't touch that. And I said, first of all, that's ridiculous. And second of all, like, that like food is one of those battles that I choose not to pick because on the other side of the spectrum, you could make a big deal out of it. And if you read like some of the comments, like someone was like, I remember some influencer, someone said like, I remember some influencer mentioning how their grandmother made them eat mushrooms to a point where they are like forever scarred because of
Oh,
the way
yeah.
that like the stories and you hear about the stories of the opposite where I'm like, see, and that's what I don't want.
Yeah.
Like there are certain things where like you have to find that middle ground of being like, it's important. We're going to try to make you do the things that are going to keep you healthy and
Yeah.
use something, but like everyone acts like they have it all figured out. Like they
Yeah.
act like the perfect,
Mm-hmm.
perfect person. I remember actually someone commented on that video, and I was thankfully their profile was or public, so I was able
Mm-hmm.
to click on it, and I went, and the first video was their child dancing with a box of Cheez-Its. And so I went back and I said something about the Cheez-Its, and it wasn't to try shameful. I was just like, because whatever he had said to me was like to knock me. And I said, and this is coming from someone who allowed their child to eat Cheez-Its. And I was like,
Yeah.
tell me where the mix up is. And he was like, that has nothing to do. I was like, but again, I don't understand where you're coming from. So what am I doing wrong? Like that's why I was like so confused as to
Mm-hmm.
all of the hate that came on that one. I was like, you guys are confusing me right now.
Yeah.
Don't understand.
It's super, and I can't understand. I mean, in some sense, sometimes I look at the comments and I'm like, are you even a parent at all? Like, have you actually done this, period? You know, or are you just like, especially with TikTok, because I'll be like, are you a child? Like literally, you
Well, and
know,
most
are
of the time
you a
they
minor?
probably are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Because we've had a little bit of that on our Are We Bad Parents account where it's like somebody will come in and say something really hateful and you go to their profile and it's like, man, you were like 12, you know, like please go away. Go play a video game or something. But like I I can't understand where the hate comes from other parents because we all know that it's tough. You know, we're
Yeah.
all trying to get through it. And we all have to make it's been really interesting actually, because since Tim and I have started our podcast, we have been listing out decisions that we make.
Yeah.
purely so that we can remember to come back to it for content. So it's like anytime that we make any sort of, it could be anything as big as, you know, are we going to, I mean, we're a little bit past this at this point, but, you know, are we going to sleep train, or are we going to flip her car seat around? You know, like those kinds of decisions too. Should we have let her have all that cheese dip at the Mexican restaurant? You know, so it ranges. But what's been really interesting about it is that at this point, the list is so fucking long that it's like, how do we have our brains? Like, how have we not just completely lost it at this point? Because this is an insane amount of decisions to be making.
Oh, yeah.
Every single day. And so then you have people on TikTok that want to come in and be like, based off that one decision, this one little clip that I saw, you know, you're a bad parent. And it's like,
and that's the thing. It's like I said, it's a big blanket statement. And that's what I had actually said the other day. And I was like, when I did to get the box of, you know, answers for the bad mom, good mom. And I had said, you know, it's funny about social media. And this is why, if anyone's listening here and you've shared your life on social media, take it with a grain of salt. Please take it with a grain of salt, because it is such bullshit. I sometimes don't know why I do what I do, because I'm like, I don't know why the fuck I put my life out there for people to come and criticize, because I don't need it.
yeah.
Where I'm like, I don't know why I do this, but I also know why I do it, because I'm trying to, I do help people. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go with it. But I've been criticized, and I did a reel about it, like sleep training, chicken nuggets. I say the word fuck a lot. What other ones did I do? I like to prioritize myself. I don't like to play with my kids. Like, I went through a list of things, but one of the things that I've been praised on, applauded on, was the video that recently went viral of my youngest dancing to Get Low.
Like, that's it. That's the good parent bar.
Yes. And I said to my husband, I was like, tell me where that fucking makes any sense. But that's why you need to take everything with a grain of salt, because you have my Haley, who loves the song Get Low. That she really does. And that's a technically filthy song. Technically filthy. I mean, she only listens to the beginning portion. Never let her get anywhere further. And I always like to fill in the words, like, all you babies crawl. Like, oh, yeah. So anyway, I like to fill that in. But people applaud me. I have not seen one nasty comment in any of those videos. It's been shared by Little John himself on Facebook, on his Instagram,
awesome.
on my
I didn't realize that.
He did. It's great. It's like going everywhere, but I have yet to see one nasty comment on there. And this is like, the comments are like, parenting done right. Great job, mom. And I'm like,
it's so arbitrary.
Well, but here's, and what I've come to my conclusion on is because they see Haley happy.
Yep. That's a great point. Yeah.
It's because she's smiling and she is truly happy right there, where I think that is the takeaway. And that's the thing that people are forgetting is like for me, I sleep train. I don't know if you sleep train. Doesn't matter. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I sleep train my kids. I'm really not that great at it, especially this past time, but I do sleep train. Mainly because I need my sleep. Like, if I don't, I'm a pretty fucking miserable person to be around. And I'm not the best mom. I will automatically say I'm not the best mom. If I don't have adequate sleep in me, I'm not getting in the things I like. I like to exercise. I usually eat a little bit crappier, and my attitude's poor. So for me, sleep is something I prioritize, and it's just up there, and it makes me a happier mom, which means my kids are happier. Like, that is what it is. But those are the details people don't see. Instead, they focus on like, well, the baby might be crying, or I don't know, like what other things did I say? I like to say the word fuck in front of my kids. They think of like my kid going and saying fuck. Like, no, my kid actually recently said it the other day, but she has no idea what she said. And if anything, she's saying it because it's funny to her. She's trying to get a reaction out of me because she wants to laugh. And what I can tell you is that she knows no other words that would ever hurt someone.
Yeah. Not to mention, Tim and I had the cussing conversation recently because we cuss in front of our kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, if anything, it gives us an opportunity to talk to her about it eventually. At this point, she's still too young, but it's like, and he actually talk about bad parenting. He recently taught her to say, oh shit. And and I'm like, she's gonna go to daycare and they're gonna call us and be like, your kid. And she knows, and it's so funny because she'll look at us and she gets this like really mischievous grin and she goes, oh shit, oh shit.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God. But it's funny. And eventually we'll talk to her about,
Well, and
where.
I've always said that, like, for me, there are
Mhm.
no bad words. There are bad words. And I've said that before because then I like correct myself. I'm like, there are bad words. The ones
Yeah.
that are, racial or hate
Yes.
filled, like
Yeah.
those are bad words. Those don't ever come in my house. So I'm not even worried about that. But
Yep.
with the word fucking shit and whatever, like I call them, if I don't know if you saw the video of my daughter recently saying bombs away fucker. Have you seen that one?
No. Oh my
Oh,
God.
go on my page. I think I
Okay.
forget what on TikTok, or I don't know if you're on Instagram, but let me see what it's
Yeah.
called on TikTok. I might have called it F bombs and Fridays. It's a
That's
little,
hilarious.
where is it? Yes, Fridays and F bombs. You'll see it on there. It's like a little bit down. It's like before I
Okay.
got my hair done.
Yeah.
But my daughter says bombs away, fuckers. And we're making a smoothie. And my son puts in the banana first, and he goes, bombs away, as a 3-year-old would. And then my daughter adds in a piece of mango and she goes, bombs away, fuckers. and it's a whole slow mo video. You know what? I'll play it here. Let's see if
Oh my God.
you can see.
I can see it.
To see.
Oh, there it is. Okay, perfect. Look at your face. Oh my God.
Because I thought I was wrong. And then right after this, she whispers to me because I thought I was wrong. And so she goes to my ear and she goes, fuckers. And I'm like, oh my God. So, and she's actually been pretty good. Like my kids have heard us swear. My husband's a police officer. So my husband just like, it's part of our lingo. We're from New Jersey. We just swear all the time. And I didn't grow up in a family that I had that happen where like swearing was always something. And because of that, I know as a kid, I loved doing it even more. And again, I'm a big neutral person. So for me, I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. And the way I ended that video was like, that's for mommies only. I said, are you a mommy? And she said, no. And I was like, exactly. You don't say that. Like, because I don't want to say it's a bad word. It's off limits. It's an adult word. Like until you know the time and place for it, you can't say it until you know that some people might get offended by that. Like, I don't just like, if I meet someone new, I don't go automatically say the word fuck. Like I kind of wait and feel them out. And then I throw it out there. But and that's what I want my kids to know. It's like they can have that language in their vocabulary as long as they're just mindful of it and
times and places. Yeah. Oh my God. That's so funny. That's hilarious. But I'm like, at the end of the day too, it's kind of like, okay, why? It's just, for me, it's reassurance that we don't need to take ourselves and our parenting so seriously.
No.
Like the best moments with my kid is when we're doing something like a little bit questionable with regards to like, is this the safest thing? Or like, is this like Tim teaching her to say, oh shit, like probably not the greatest thing, but it's hilarious. Yeah. Or, we had her like on her diaper changing pad, and then we had the diaper changing pad on a blanket, and we were like running the house with the blanket, like letting her like, be on a sled or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, this looks absurd. And this is probably not the safest thing for her, but we are having a blast. And,
I think it all boils down to kind of just like, I think when, again, I've always feel this way. It's an example I always like to use is like, if you hear about someone, well, this is like a really terrible example, but if you ever hear of someone get in a car crash when they're drunk, they actually don't get hurt a lot of times because they're not overthinking it. Most of the time when people are hurt in a car accident, it's because they know the impact is coming. And I honestly think that we do more damage to ourselves because we are constantly overthinking it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 110%.
So that's like my analogy. I know it's like a terrible analogy, but I'm like, I honestly think that that's true. It's like the less we kind of like take ourselves off guard a little bit. We're like, and even for myself, like I know my mom can be anxious with like my kids doing certain things where like, for example, my son, when he goes downstairs, for some reason, my mom gets so anxious that he's going to fall down the stairs. So when he does, my mom is like, Spencer, hold on. And then it causes Spencer to turn around, look at her, and then almost fall down the stairs.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, I kind of just don't say anything. And then meanwhile, I'm in the inside, I'm like, oh God, shit, like, please
Yep.
don't fall in the stairs. But I kind of just known to like take a step back and let them play it out, because it's like the stress response brings out a worse income. And I'm like, okay, I'm
Yes,
just going to chill out. This.
exactly.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what parents need to do a little bit, is just like lay
Chill.
back, lay
I
back.
know. I
It's
wish if I
easier said
could.
than done,
Oh,
but yeah,
100%. And because I work again, like Tim is better about the like hands off, let her try to experience the thing, let her try to figure it out,
yeah,
and it's a work in progress for me. But if I could like go back to myself and like the postpartum infancy phase, and again, who knows if I would actually heed this advice, but like just chill out, girl. Like I wish I could just tell myself to like breathe and I mean, this is shitty advice, but like try to enjoy it. But I was so concerned, and we had all the tracking apps, and those can be helpful, but like I breastfed her for 8 months, and for the first 3 months of those, I was just like, I couldn't even think straight. I was so stressed out because I
yeah,
swear if I could have thought straight, I would not have continued doing what I was doing. Like I would
yeah,
have like introduced formula, but I was so like in my head, and I can remember the way it felt. Like it just like I felt like I was just crunched, like something was on my shoulders, like
yeah,
couldn't breathe, super stressed out. And I was just so concerned about like, did she eat for 8 minutes on each side? Did
yeah,
she, is our wake window exactly what it needs to be? She was really small too for a little while when she was born.
yeah,
And so it was just like, is she gaining the weight she's supposed to gain? Are we doing all the right things? I remember being like super stressed about traveling to go see family, like all of it, everything we did, every decision we made was just like so heavy on my brain. And then some of that was probably PPA too. So it's
well, I was
like,
about to
that was
say, I was
not,
like, and
yeah,
that's why, like, because I actually got that more this time than I
really,
did any past
really.
experience.
Oh
Hmm.
my gosh. See, my hope for myself was that with the second child, I would be able to be like, it's
See, and you might, because
okay.
I still am that way. So the second for me personally, 1 to 2 really rocked my world. But
Yeah.
I always say that, and I'm always preference that when the pandemic hit 3.5 months after my second was born.
Oh my
So
God.
that just isolation, like postpartum isolation is one thing, but when you have the world on fire isolation, that's an entire new thing.
Yeah.
So I think it just rocked my world a little bit. The 2 to 3 though is what taught me the most in order to actually have a third, to want a
Yeah.
third. So that's why I always say that, because I'm like, the 1 to 2 rocked my world, but it was enough to rock my world where I learned so much from it that I actually felt brave enough to try it for a third time. So
Yeah.
it wasn't enough to deter me. It was just enough to like, it was really rocky, but I came out stronger because of it. But the PPA was mainly just because I think there was a lot in it, but I think it was like I had 2 really healthy pregnancies and shit
Hmm.
was bound to happen at this point. I was like, no one else is like this lucky. And I'm like, the
Yeah.
world's gonna, like, we already went through hell. And the second one, something's bound to happen with this one. And like, I couldn't lose this feeling of another shoe dropping
Hmm.
this entire time, which
I
sucked. But
Yeah.
I think I was a little bit more like laid back in other areas where I didn't like get as concerned about like certain things, but then you get guilty on other things. So, you don't win. No
You
one
never
wins.
win.
No
Oh
one
my
wins.
God.
And that's the thing,
Yeah.
is like I would love to tell like a first time. I have a friend that just had her first baby and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not a first time mom anymore." I'm like, I'm so glad, because it really
Yeah.
does rock your world. Like that, and I don't think I realized how much it does, but you were just like your deer in headlights with that
Yes.
first baby.
Oh yeah.
And
It's
that will dwindle. That will dwindle. You won't feel that way the second time, but it definitely is just like you second guess everything. But social media
Yeah.
doesn't help us either. Social media is
Oh God,
killing us.
I know. And it's so I tried to do the content creation thing for a little bit. I haven't totally given it up, but like, I mean, I commend you for like getting through some of the hateful comments and the comparisons and the just because I feel like such a big baby. Like the moment somebody's mean to me, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore.
No,
I
I
like,
mean, well, yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I don't either. Shit, sometimes I don't either, but it's just like I thankfully have majority of really kind people
Yeah.
that really just welcome me. I know, like, after I shared that message that I wrote out saying, like, sometimes I don't always agree with your parenting style, like things like that. that first little tagline of that actually kind of was like a little bit of like a jab where like part of my like self what word is that? Like self-sabotage wanted to like
Mhm.
find out being like, what of my parenting don't you like? But
I would
I
do the
just, I
same
don't,
thing.
I'm trying to encourage myself not to do that anymore and like
Mhm.
really trust in what I'm doing, like of that stuff. There are moments though, and I always tell, I think the thing that has helped me is like I know that I don't sugarcoat shit, if that makes sense. So if those who actually do respond know that I am like I'm trying to humanize like social
Yeah.
media moms because I really am I'm a mom sitting up in my kid bedroom right now with my three kids running rampant downstairs because I'm trying to do this so I hopefully can make moms feel a little bit less alone.
Yeah.
Um, but I think because of social media, people think you're untouchable or they put you on a pedestal. And I think
Yeah.
that that needs to go away because I am literally no different than you
Mhm.
in many ways. Like we both are just trying to figure this shit out and
Yep.
it's a shit storm.
Oh yeah, yeah. They dehumanize you a little bit. Like it's like, oh, well, you're just like this distant figure that like,
Yeah,
we can
because
hurl
you have a
insults at.
screen.
Like,
You have a
yeah.
screen and people don't
Yeah.
think that there's repercussions from it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you don't realize it's literally a parent.
Yeah.
And no one that doesn't do any good for anyone. Like you
No.
think you're helping, you're not at all.
Yep. I
At
know. I
all.
know. It's made things really black and white too. So it's like, and we were talking about sleep training earlier, and it's like I was like, did we sleep train? Yes and no. Like, it's like, I feel like every decision we've made has been like some sort of like, I don't know, conglomerate of like all the possibilities. Like, it's like, I think something that really, really made things difficult for me in the first year was this belief that I had to either like you either breastfed or you bottle fed.
Yep.
You either sleep train or you don't. You or a gentle parent or you're an authoritative parent. Like there's no in between. And it's like it's almost like it reinforces this belief that, oh, if we can check it's like a test. If I check the right boxes, like that is what will make me a good parent. And I'm putting air quotes around this for people listening. And it's such a difficult way of doing things because the reality is like you're never, I shouldn't say never because there I go being like super extreme, but like you you likely won't often completely fall into any one box. Like
Yeah.
it's like,
No.
yeah,
No.
we do gentle parenting things, but not all the time. And like we did some sort of sleeping thing to help her sleep, but I don't know if you would call it perfect sleep training. And like
No, well, that's what I always say. I'm like, I don't
yeah.
do everything. Like, I don't baby led wean, but I also do
Hmm.
purees. But then I also will pinch things off of my food and give that to my baby. Or
Yeah.
I sleep train. But when I tell that to people, I'm like, what do you think sleep training is? Because if you think it's me just putting my child in a dark room and letting him cry for hours, you're wrong. And I said,
Yeah.
so I don't know what, and I always, especially with sleep training, I always like tippy toe around that one because I'm like, what do you think it is? I'm like, answer that first for me, what you think sleep training is, and then I'll tell you what I think sleep training is, and then
Yeah.
we'll figure it out. Because I'm like, I'm very confused by that. But like you said, it is very black and white, and that's what we need to get away from. Like we need to just
Yes.
get this understanding that, like, again, if we're going to relate on anything, and that's what I try and tell people is like, especially in the day and age of social media, relatable content. Like I
Yeah.
on Instagram, I'm that relatable AF mama. And I said this
Mhm.
morning, I said, I don't want anyone to come to my page and think she is me.
Yeah.
I don't want that. Like, and I have had
Mhm.
people like the video I did of like A, B, C, and D of why people don't
Mhm.
agree on that. I had people say like A, B, D, F. Like these are the ones that I agree on. The other ones I don't do. And I said, awesome.
Okay.
Great. I
Yeah.
said, that's perfect. And I said, I
Yeah.
don't want that. I said, because I'm trying not to be relatable in terms of like copycat. I want to
Mhm.
be familiar. Like, I
Yeah.
hope that I'm someone that feels familiar with you. And if the last thing that, like, if all, I do everything completely the opposite of you, I hope the familiarity is knowing that I love my kids to
Mhm.
death and I will
Yeah.
do anything for
Mhm.
them just as you will.
Yeah.
That's
I
it.
love that. Yeah.
And I think that's what people need to realize is like, are there bad parents out there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
there
don't live in
are.
a perfect world.
We don't. But,
Hmm.
but majority,
Hmm.
heavy majority are really really good and
Yeah.
they're trying and that's all we can do is we're going to be learning until until we are old and gray and our kids have kids. And at some point, our kids, hopefully, God willing, will come to us and be like, hey, what did you do? And you're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, this is all brand new to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's constantly evolving. And that's what we have to kind of be. We need to be kind to ourselves and then kind to others because of it.
Agreed. Kind to ourselves, kind to others. Yeah. Because it's already hard enough. Like parenting is already difficult enough without having to feel like so-and-so is looking down on you, or this person on TikTok thinks you're a bad parent, or, you know, then I feel like a bad parent, or, yeah, it's already difficult enough. And I don't know, the moments that I enjoy parenting the most is when I'm not, I mean, honestly, like what you said earlier, when the stress isn't there. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about whether or not I'm being a good mom. I'm just being a mom, and I'm being present and intentional, and she's happy and I'm happy, and everything's glorious.
Yeah. It's not the action itself. I always say it's not the action itself. It's always the noise that surrounds it.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's always that noise, and it just doesn't help anyone at all.
No.
I actually just did a video about it, about like my advice for unsolicited advice. If you look at one, I just did it. And it was like, if you have to offer advice 5 minutes or less, if you can't get something done and offer something in 5 minutes or less, don't say shit.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Like, just don't.
And someone had asked, they said, well, what's an example of that? And I said, well, for example, if your child throws a tantrum in the parking lot and they knock over your diaper bag and all the contents spill out, that's something that you can do in 5 minutes. What you can't do is change my child's behavior or my behavior by coming up and be like, my child would never do this. That does nothing.
It's a solid example. It's a really good example. It's like,
right? Because you know that help me out with something tangible that I can use in that very moment. Because for me, if I see that happening in a parking lot, I like, or even, and this is also goes the other way of like going up and being like, you're doing great, mom. That also doesn't help. That also doesn't help. Where it's like tangible, like if you see something, if they drop the pacifier and their baby is freaking out, go pick up the pacifier for them. That's something you could tangibly do, but it's like, it's on both spectrums, like toxic negativity and toxic positivity. Like actually action is what we need.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because I've had, thankfully, I've never had anybody come up to me in public and be like, my kid would not act like this. I've gotten the looks. I'll get the, oh, my kid would never. I've overheard somebody say, I can't believe she brought her kid here. And it was just like, it was literally like the most laid back restaurant in Florida. Like it was not formal. It was not, anyway. Old man. I shouldn't say of course, but of course. You know, so I luckily haven't had much of that, but I have had women in particular that will come up and say, you're doing great. She's just so cute. And then it's almost always capped with just make sure you're enjoying it. And meanwhile, she's like screaming at me. And I'm like, I'm really not enjoying my life right now. Like, if you could just like back up for a second, that would be cool. And we could move on from here. And she's just getting angrier because I'm not giving her the attention that she wants. And it's not helpful. It's not helpful either way. I don't know.
Yeah. 5 minute action. That's what I would say. Keep it at 5 minutes. And if you can't do anything in that time, then don't say shit and keep walking.
Mind your own business, please.
Mind your own business, please. Yeah, seriously.
Worry about yourself.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Awesome. Well, we will wrap it up. That way everyone listening can go cherish those moments. Go cherish those fleeting moments of
embrace every moment. Enjoy every moment.
Go embrace every moment, even though some of them fucking suck. So it's fine.
Enjoy that tantrum.
Enjoy that tantrum. Go cherish those moments. Seriously.
I can feel the eye rolls.
I know. Seriously though, go enjoy whatever you can, but also never feel afraid to be like, you know what, this doesn't feel bad. This doesn't feel great. I don't like this. I wish I could press forward on this moment. You can do that, and you're not a bad parent.
Yep.
You're
Preach.
100%. You're not anything. You're just a human who's experiencing a not so fun moment. Because at the end of the day, that's all you are, just with additional roles and responsibilities AKA our kids.
Yep. You couldn't do anything for literal years and not have a single shitty moment.
No,
you parent for years of your life. It's not going to be glorious the whole time.
I say that to people who work like a regular 9-to-5 job. I'm like, do you enjoy your job every single second?
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't. No one does. Like I know some people get mad being like, this isn't a job. And I'm like, it is a job.
Oh my God. It is a job.
My job. It's the most important job, in my opinion, on the planet, because I'm keeping the future of the population going. So yes, it is.
It is. And it's hard.
Yeah, it is. Awesome.
Oh
well,
God.
for everyone listening, I will, on my end, I will link Are We Bad Parents podcast. I'll link all the information in my show notes. That way you guys can find Kristan and her husband, Tim, and listen to everything also with their TikToks as well. And then,
awesome. And I'll do the same vice versa over on our end. We'll link the Very Merry Life podcast and all the social media things, and make sure they know where to check you out.
Awesome. Well, this was so much fun.
It was fun. Yeah.
And for everyone listening, you're doing a badass job. That's what we are. You're not good. You're not bad. You're badass.
There we go. I like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Kristan.
Thank you.
Another episode down and way more to go. But thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to help support this podcast, I would love for you to subscribe. I'd love for you to share it with others and post about it on your own social media, or leave a rating and review. I cannot tell you how helpful and how appreciated those things are for me. Of course, to catch all the latest from me, you can follow me over on Instagram at The Very Merry Life, over on TikTok, The Very Merry Life. And even if you wanted to check out my monthly newsletter, you can do so by subscribing over at theverymerrylife.com. I'll see you next week. Stay tuned for more honest, raw, real chit chat. I have some amazing moms lined up coming on, and shit's going to get fun. So buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be good.